We're going to take a look at multiplying decimals. But before we do that, let's remember how we multiply whole numbers. So on the left side here, we have 15 times 738. If we were going to set this up using the standard algorithm, how we've been multiplying, we would put the 738 on top, and then we would multiply by 15 just like this. Even though the 15 is first, we wouldn't put the 15 on top. We would put the 738 on top. And the reason is because it has more digits. You might have thought all along it was because it's bigger, but it's actually because it has more digits. When we multiply, we put the number with the most digits on top. So in this case, we put the 738 on top because it has 3 digits. 1, 2, 3. And we put the 15 on the bottom because it just has 2 digits. 1, 2, like that. So now on the right, we have 2 decimals, 1 5/10 times 7 38/100. So if we wanted to multiply these, we would put the 7 38/100 on top because it has the most digits. So we would set it up just like this. 7 38/100 times 1 5/10, like that. We would almost set it up like we were going to multiply 738 times 15 on the left. We would set it up just the same. We don't line up the decimal points. That's something that you do when you add and subtract decimals. But when you multiply, you take the number with the most digits and put it on top, and you line it up to the right, just like we would with whole numbers. So now I've got this all set up correctly, and so I would just multiply like we do with whole numbers. So I'm going to just go through the process. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 4 is 19. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36, just like with whole numbers. And then we add the 0, my hero. We want to cross these off so I don't use them by accident. 1 times 8 is 8, 1 times 3 is 3, and 1 times 7 is 7, and then we add them up. 0 plus 0 is 0, 9 plus 8 is 17, 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 3 is 10, 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 7 is 11. So now, in the end, our product looked like this, but now we need to put our decimal point in our product. So what we do is we look at the top factor and count how many decimal places it has. So I'm looking here, and the top factor has 1, 2. So this top factor has 2 decimal places. Now I'm going to look at the second factor and count the decimal places. 1. So all together, our factors have 3 decimal places. 2 from the top factor and 1 from the bottom. That's 3 decimal places. So now in our answer, we move over 3 places. 1, 2, 3. And there is our answer, 11 and 70 thousandths. I don't need to add that last 0 if I don't want, but I can. And now let's take a look to see if this sounds about right. So 1 5/10 is about 2. 7 38/100 is about 7. My answer should be about 14, and it's pretty close. Now let's look at some others. So on the left here we have 6 2/10 times 50 and 9/10. And so first I need to decide which factor goes on top, and it's going to be 50 and 9/10 because it has more digits, not because it's bigger, because it has more digits. So I'm going to set it up with the 50 and 9/10 on top and the 6 and 2/10 on the bottom, almost as if I was multiplying 509 times 62. And now I'm just going to multiply like normal. So 2 times 9 is 18, 2 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, and 2 times 5 is 10. I'm going to add 0, my hero, and cross off the 1 here. 6 times 9 is 54, 6 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5, and 6 times 5 is 30. Now I need to add them up. 8 plus 0 is 8, 4 plus 1 is 5, 5 plus 0 is 5, 1 plus 0 is 1, and 3 plus 0 is 3. And so now I've got my digits in my answer, and it's time for me to place the decimal point. So I look at the top factor, and the top factor has 1 decimal place, and the bottom factor has 1 decimal place. So there's 1 decimal place from the top and another from the second. Altogether, that's 2 decimal places. So in my answer, I need to move it over 2 decimal places. 1, 2. And now I've got my answer, 315 and 58 hundredths. Now let's look at the next one. I have 3 times 2 and 47 hundredths. I'm going to put the 2 and 47 hundredths on the top because it has the most digits. It's actually not the biggest number. In this multiplication problem, the 3 is the biggest number, but I put the 2 and 47 hundredths on top because it has the most digits. And then I multiply it by 3, just like that. I don't line up the decimal points. That's how we add and subtract decimals. So I set it up just as if I was going to do 247 times 3. And my decimal points aren't lined up, but that's okay. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. In this problem over here, my decimal points happen to be lined up. It was just a coincidence. So now let's go back to my problem. So my decimal points aren't lined up, but that's okay. I have the number with the most digits on top. And now I'm just going to multiply like normal. So 3 times 7 is 21, and 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14, 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Now I need to place my decimal in the answer. So my top factor has 2 decimal places. And my bottom factor doesn't have any. It has 0 decimal places. And altogether, 2 from the top, 0 from the bottom is 2 decimal places. So I'm going to move my decimal point over 2 decimal places in my answer. And I have 7 and 41 hundredths. So here's another one. I have 6 tenths times 9 and 73 hundredths. The 9 and 73 hundredths is going to go on top because it has the most digits. And now I'm going to put the 6 tenths on the bottom. I don't really need this 0, so I'm just going to take it away. It'll make it easier so I don't have to add a whole bunch of zeros in my answer. You could put it there if you wanted, but it's not necessary. And so now I'm just going to multiply like normal. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 7 is 42, plus 1 is 43. 6 times 9 is 54, plus 4 is 58. There we go. Now I need to place my decimal in the answer. I have 2 decimal places from the top factor, 1 from the bottom. So all together, that's 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. And there's my answer, 5 and 838 thousandths. Now the next one, I have 71 and 3 tenths times 4. The 71 and 3 tenths will go on top. 4 will go on the bottom. Now I multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 4 times 7 is 28. And now the top factor has 1 decimal place, and the bottom factor doesn't have any. So altogether, that's 1 decimal place in my answer. So I move it over, and there we go. My answer is 285 and 2 tenths. Now we're going to look at this one. This one's a special case. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So the 34 hundredths is going to go on top, and the 2 tenths is going to go on the bottom. The 34 hundredths is on the top because it has the most digits. So I multiply like normal. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 3 is 6. So now the top factor has 2 decimal places. The bottom factor has 1. So that's 3 decimal places in my answer. So I move over 1, 2. Now I need to go a third like that. So my decimal point is here. So I've got this place. So I need to add a 0 here. And now I have my answer, 68 thousandths.